Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa says the road has been paved for China and South Africa to share a meaningful business journey. He was speaking at a business forum in Beijing where Chinese and South African delegates shared ideas today. Ramaphosa was speaking as data out today showed that China grew at an annualized 7% in the second quarter. That's in line with the government's expectation that the economy will grow at around 7% this year. Monthly data also showed a better than expected performance in China's industrial output and its retail sales. The South African government has often expressed concern that trade is skewed in China's favor. South Africa sells China raw materials, but many of the goods imported from that country have been enhanced and are more expensive due to manufacturing. Ramaphosa says South Africa is looking for new opportunities in emerging markets that are mutually beneficial. In his capacity as the ANC's deputy president, he also signed a 5-year cooperation agreement with the Communist Party in Beijing. Well, our business anchor, Francis Hurd, joins us live from Beijing. Thanks for joining us, Francis. What are your impressions of the talks that have been happening in Beijing so far?
Well, they have been from both sides glowingly positive. The deputy president has just held a press conference. He was speaking to Chinese journalists as well as us from South Africa. And I asked him, I said, growth rates are slowing in China. We've seen this volatility on the stock markets. We're used to the rand going up and down, but we're not used to huge volatility on these Chinese markets. And the world is seriously concerned. Could this fantastic story of Chinese growth change? Could it start with a possible market crash? And the deputy president said that he's very confident, like the business people and others that I've spoken to here, that the government is managing this economy well, and all is rosy basically in the future, and certainly the government does manage and it does intervene quite regularly.
Now, we do get the headline news on China, but how do ordinary Chinese people feel about their economy and, of course, what happened on the Chinese markets last week?
Well, I spoke to business people, and they all say that they believe this is a fluctuation and we shouldn't get diverted by that. They believe the fundamentals are there and the outlook is extremely positive. And Nanonku, this is a more authoritarian country than South Africa. It's widely known. It's risky to speak negatively about how the government is managing things. But I believe that the people that I speak to are hugely optimistic. And they believe in what the government is doing, and they believe that the future is incredibly bright. It's hard to speak to ordinary people on the streets where we are. We were close to government buildings, close to the hotels. So quite a police presence, and ordinary people don't really like to speak to the press, even to speak to the SOEs. You need a lot of, you need to jump through a lot of hoops. There's a lot of protocol. So the business people I spoke to said, maybe some of the ordinary people are worried because we know that individual Chinese people have put their savings in the stock markets and the small caps. They must be worried with some of the plunges. But a lot of the people I spoke to said if you're educated, if you're in business, you know that this is just a little blip and the future is bright.
And finally, Francis, has the deputy president taken up the issue of the arrest of the South African group with the Chinese government at all?
We asked him about it, and it must be unfortunate for a deputy president to arrive in a country. Next thing, the news is that 10 South Africans arrested. The word terrorism is being bandied about. He didn't want to say much, but he did respond to our questions put by radio. He said, yes, government is aware, and this has been dealt with on an hour-by-hour basis at the level of the Department of International Relations. So it needs to stay at that level, and he can't talk about the discussions that are going on, but he said that it's certainly being addressed hourly, and government hopes for a solution soon.
All right, then. Thanks very much, Francis. That was our business anchor, Francis Hurd, updating us on what's happening in Beijing.